you're saying
what I did is prior ago, keep it inside the wall, 2 hours
2 minutes later.
and it was right from the outside. He told me he was going to clean it up and then clean the truck. And me and Diego, I don't know where that machine is, it's a little like working, just right now.
been on that road before.
Yeah, it's going up. I can do the work on it.
You remember when we were on that?
Yeah. But you got the big ass fans up there. Look at it all.
Yeah,
Yeah. 20 foot in diameter.
Okay. I have to. Yeah, you do.
I put fans, break a house still being I can make it cold.
Which way do you have the air going?
Well, I am.
What do you have to go for there?
All right, we're going to start. We have a couple more people coming, but they'll catch up with us. I'm Catherine Rose, the town manager. Thank you so much for coming. This is our mayor, Michael Chicat. We welcome you to the meeting and for your interest in the PPI program. This is a kickoff meeting for the Planning Partnership Initiative with Maine DOT. The council appointed a committee to oversee this project. We have several sitting councilors, past councilors, and business people. We have our mayor, Michael Chicat, councilors Jason Hall, Eric Saucy, and Heather Donahue. We have business people Pete Vignew and Brent Newhouse. Our SID 53 school nurse Lindsay Holmstrom, who's on Zoom, and member Craig Weaver. The PPI is intended to address time-sensitive, locally initiated planning and feasibility studies that occur outside the Maine DOT's normal work plan. Our project of the sidewalk is not in the MDOT work plan, but it does influence the road project that's coming through and vice versa. So this is an activity and an approach in which we can study, evaluate, plan, and scope transportation projects. So we'll be focused for this committee meeting and this kickoff meeting on transportation issues. Basically, the steps were the town contacted MDOT to see if we qualified for a feasibility study. After several meetings, it was found that we did. Maine DOT officials came to the council and talked to them at length about the project. It was agreed by the council that we would move forward. A scope was put together and a project for us. An RFQ was issued, and that's a request for qualification. So it wasn't based upon money in the lowest bid. It was based upon the most qualified firm. We sent out proposals to many firms, advertised it, and received some really good proposals. We were very fortunate. A small committee chose the number one ranked project, which was just very focused on the town and full of information from Gorilla Parma. A negotiation process took place between the state and the consultant, and the town was very fortunate that we got an amended grant and more money for the project. So this has worked out really well. So we are here for the kickoff meeting, and we'll be introducing our consultant, Don Eddington, with Gorilla Parma. He has a very nice agenda with many talking points that is available this evening for you and been sent out to people that were invited to the meeting. So I'll turn the meeting over to Don and he can introduce his group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Can everybody hear me okay?
Just about.
All right, so my name is Don Edinger. I work for a company called Gorilla Palmer. Pittsfield's near and dear to my heart. I grew up in that community, so I'm excited to be able to work with your community on this assignment. Hopefully we can do some very good things as a team. I will introduce my study team. On my screen, you have Jeff Fitzmaurice. He's a design engineer that will be helping us out on this project. Jeff grew up in St. Albans, so not very far from Pittsfield, is familiar with the town as well. We also have Nick Aceto on our team. Nick is president of Aceto Landscape Architects. Nick is going to be really good on this team for us. He helps us out with pedestrian-focused communities, pocket parks, helping us out with landscape lighting, but also with pedestrian connectivity. So Pittsfield's pretty unique. You guys have a lot of parks in your downtown area, and so we have schools. We have a lot of opportunity for connectivity. So we're excited about this assignment. So Jared is also here from DOT. He's worked closely with the town of Pittsfield on orchestrating this study. So, Kathy, any questions on the introductions? Do we want to do more introductions, or you're good for us to move forward with the agenda?
I think we're good to move forward, and we're all going to have to speak up so everybody can hear. And anyone that can't hear, you can move up front. There's plenty of seats, and council chairs too.
So would you like me to speak up a little louder too, Kathy?
If you could, thank you so much.
Okay, I'll do my best. All right, so I see on the screen here, it looks like there's some handouts on the front table. Is that the agenda that I provided with the meeting invite?
Yes, it is, Dawn.
Okay, so everybody that's in the audience, feel free to grab a copy of that. We'll be kind of walking through that agenda. It's not only an agenda, but it's also some talking points. So that will help guide you through this presentation. What we'd like to do is kind of walk you through the presentation, kind of give you an outline of our thoughts to the study, what the scope might be, things that we're going to look at. But we're going to have opportunities where we're going to check in with you guys in today's meeting to get some intelligence and some intel from you to help guide us through this study. At the end of the day, this is your study. You need to kind of guide us as to what your wishes are, so we can make sure we try to accomplish that as we go through this process. So the first one I'm going to showcase, I'm going to share my screen. And let's see here. All right, so if I'm sharing my screen correctly, you guys should see an overall map. You guys see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the town of Pittsfield. You can see the interstates on the left-hand side of the screen. Let's talk a little bit about the study area. So I'll flip a screen here. Go to this one. In red, that's our study area at this time. So we're focused on Main Street, Route 11, starting down at the southern end near the Industrial Park Road, which is officially termed Stetson Street, and heading up past Richie's Pizza, up the hill, into town, MCI on the left. You start heading into town, across the railroad tracks. We're into the downtown area. I suspect with this committee, the focus is on a lot on what we do downtown in the downtown area, but it's important to note our study limits are pretty wide. So we continue. So this would be our downtown area here. The railroad tracks are right here for bearings and orientation. And then the study continues up North Main Street, past Mill Pond, and we go around the corner, the sharp corner where I think it's Madawaska Road or Street is. We start heading up the hill to the hospital. So our scope of work goes all the way up to the hospital and beyond to the Detroit town line. So all the way up to this area. So, and we're not just, so we're looking at that corridor, I'll call it the Main Street corridor, but we're also broadening out left and right a little bit to strategic locations. And so if we come back here, it's not in the red, but I think MCI is an important location to consider when we're looking at this study, as well as Manson Park. Most communities would die to have a park like Manson Park. So having grown up in the community, it's a fantastic place and a great opportunity to improve on things. In town, on the backside of your downtown area, you have Hathorne Park, where Little League games take place. You also have, I think it's called Stein Park near the pond. So you have opportunities here that I think you can really create a pedestrian-friendly environment. So we're excited about those. You have natural resources in this area too, that we'll talk about that in a bit. So any questions on the study limits? You guys good with that? Hearing none, I'll move on. So as mentioned earlier, this is a planning partnership initiative. So this is a feasibility study. It's a planning level study. We're not going out building anything. We're trying to plan it, and hopefully through this planning process, we'll get public support, we'll get council support, we'll get DOT support, and through that process, maybe they can allocate and get approval for federal funds to move forward and actually design and actually implement or construct it. So it's a relatively long timeline, but we've got to start with the planning effort. It's really important when we do these planning studies to get consensus and support locally That goes a long ways in getting DOT to back the project. So it's a plan of partnership initiative is the official term, or village partnership initiative. And it's funded in two parties, state and local. And I think the town is the lead agency, so we're actually contracting directly with the town on this contract. I've got noted here on the agenda one item that I think is relatively important. It's to know that Maine DOT is planning a roadway rehabilitation project right through this corridor. So basically, Main Street, Route 11, is scheduled for rehabilitation by the Maine DOT. I think most of the folks in the audience are aware of that. In fact, I think the town has worked with the DOT to incorporate some sidewalk improvements as part of that project. So it's important to be aware of that. When we start this planning study, we want to understand what is DOT proposing and can we build off of that. So our focus may be less on what's happening with the vehicles in the roadway and more on what's happening in the shoulders and the sidewalks and things like that. So just some background information. Okay, I'm on to item 3 on our agenda, and I'd like to talk about goals and objectives. So we're going to tell you what we think the goals and objectives are, but we're going to seek input from the audience on are we on the right track, or are there other things that you really want to get out of this study. Today's the day for us to start hearing those things. So we'll start. This is based on our proposal. It was actually based on the RFQ that Kathy had mentioned. So request for qualifications. They listed out what they'd like us to look at. So this is kind of regurgitating it back. So first one is safety improvements. We want to look at this corridor, this study area, and look at safety improvements. And it's for all modes of transportation. So vehicles, of course, and trucks, but bicycles and pedestrians as well, equally as important in this process. So mobility improvements. We have a few intersections here that we're going to look at and analyze from a traffic perspective. Can we make some geometrics and operational improvements to a few of your intersections? And we'll go into details in a bit on that. We're going to look at traffic calming. Coming into town, both ends of Main Street are higher speeds, and then it drops down to lower speeds in town. Should we be looking at gateway treatments or some form of traffic calming to reduce speeds on entry? And we can decide where that entry point is, whether it's all the way down by the Industrial Park Road, or maybe it's a little closer to town. Coming the other way from the hospital, you have that very steep hill near Madawaska. Is it Madawaska Ave, Drive, or Street?
Ave.
Ave, thank you. So that very steep grade, that makes their speed challenges coming down through there. But I think the speed zone drop happens, at least it used to back when I was there, it happens halfway down the hills where the speed zone drop happens. So thinking about speeds, thinking about trying to come up with traffic calming features to improve on that. I will note Madawaska Ave is one of the intersections that we're going to look at as part of this study. Expanded pedestrian connectivities. I'll share a different screen here. So this is a screen that kind of shows in bubbles some areas here that we might want to consider pedestrian connectivity to. So whether it's the school systems, you've got a series of schools within our study area, whether it's Manson Park School or MCI. You've got parks that are all within the study area. I even thought of the libraries within the study area. You have that swimming pool right in the park, in Manson Park. So pedestrian connectivities is something that we should think about as part of this study. I remember when I was there, and went to MCI, a lot of our practices were down to Manson Park. I know the football team, I think, practices behind the school now, but I don't know about the other sports, whether they still go down to Manson Park. But I remember that path, that pathway between the schools in the park was pretty common to walk. Bicycle and pedestrian improvements. We talked a lot about pedestrians, but bicycles as well. What do you have for infrastructure for bikes, and can we improve on that? As simple as, what are the shoulders like along the corridor? Can they be striped for bike lanes? If not, if there's not the space, do you have shared lanes with vehicles if the speeds are low enough? So we're going to look at that. There may be an opportunity in some locations to do a side path or a shared use, multi-use path, things like that. So, and then placemaking opportunities. Like I said, the foundation is there. You guys have a lot of good opportunities for placemaking. You created those, whether it's, I think, the Stein Park right near the Mill Pond. And I think there's some other ones on the opposite side. Maybe it's Fendler Park was created on the opposite side. And there's a Remembrance Park. There's a Veterans Park right in town. So you have these little pocket parks, and how can we improve on those, build on those, create more opportunities for people to really, what we want, I think, you want people to drive through a stop and walk around and visit Pittsfield, is what the ultimate goal is. You want it to be a destination, not something that people just drive through. So that is kind of my spiel on what I think goals and objectives are. This is where I kind of turn the forum back to the audience there. My question back to the community is, what are the town's goals and objectives? What's your wish list on this project? And the second question to that is, what are the issues? Can you identify the local issues that you're hoping this study will address? So I know those are loaded questions and there's no right or wrong answer, but I'd love to hear some feedback from the community on what you're hoping the study will improve on and accomplish. So I'll turn it over to you, Ken.
All right, very good. Do we have any comments from the committee members or from the public about what you'd like to see? Goals, ideas? We've got Pete in here.
Thank you, Catherine. Don, welcome home.
Thank you.
And your comments were very, very appropriate and accurate. I think it's important to note that this is a massive opportunity for the future of this community. But beyond that, there are some other situations that exist here in Pittsfield that might be considered by some as not positive, but they're significant opportunities. A significant portion of our Main Street is way underutilized. Kleinsmith, as you know them, owns 3 buildings, 2 of which are vacant. And at times the only other one only has about 6 people in it, as an example. And then our only downtown store, Rennie's, has been occupied for many years, will now be relocated to a building out by the interstate, which was occupied by Walgreens, which presents another problem perhaps in the eyes of some, but a significant opportunity as well. And then there are some vacant buildings. The old United Store building is empty. A number of these other buildings there. And we've shared some of this with Catherine and I have, and there's a significant opportunity to combine what you're working on right now with the entire redevelopment of Main Street. And this is the time to be doing it. On top of that, all of the property behind these buildings is owned by the town of Pittsfield. And so when we look forward, how do we collaborate? How do we work together so that we complement what your responsibilities are here in the redevelopment of Main Street and the sidewalks all the way down to South Main Street and up to North Main Street? How do we repicture this or repurpose our whole efforts there to combine these efforts so that they complement one another, and we take this community to a whole new level, which surely should take us to another 50 plus years if we get it right. And the reason why I bring it up at this time is not to interrupt what you're trying to do, but only complement what you're trying to accomplish here. Because if we really get this together from a timing perspective and secure some outside funding from a combination of state and federal government, we can recreate this community and bring it back to perhaps where it was in the 50s. And I'm very excited about it, and I'm happy you're home now. And I have to keep rubbing that in to remind these folks that you're a Pittsfield boy, gentleman, excuse me, and welcome you home. But thank you for what you presented here tonight, and we're looking forward to working with you.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter, for the kind words. I have Jared raising his hand. Jared, comments?
It's just a follow-up on Mr. Vigi's comment, and to say that if going through this process with the town has other municipalities that have done this process have demonstrated that it is an economic engine. Downtown Hollowell, pre their PPI program, had nearly 100% vacancy, and now they're at 0%. It turned that downtown around and really made it an exciting place to be. And this is part of the goal. Actually, not part of the goal of this program is to use transportation infrastructure and investments in that to stimulate the economy in rural Maine. So I think going through this process will have great impacts on the livability of it, but also, Mr. Vigu, I'm not much of a betting man. I bet you this is going to turn the town around economically, and you're going to have places competing to be in storefronts in downtown Pittsfield.
I would build on what Jared said, Mr. Vigu, Peter, if that's okay, to say that I do think that is an important element to this type of study, is to understand land use, not only existing land use, but what the future land use, what the redevelopment might look like. So we have on our team Nick with us, and while he's a landscape architect, Nick does a lot of that type of stuff. So I think we can collaborate together on that. We need some visionary focus from the town, but I think we can put some graphics on paper to try to vision that, what that might look like, and then we can complement that with this infrastructure that we're looking to do as part of this study. So I do think that I expected, Peter, that would be a comment. So I'm not surprised. And it's just on Main Street. If you start driving down towards Manson Park, the former Ford garage that I think Friends owned years ago, I don't know if they still do, but there's a huge opportunity right there at that site. And that's pretty strategic to your town center. So I assume you guys are familiar with that location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
So, and that's just not it. There are other locations that I think there are opportunities. But that location, if I misspoke, I apologize, but that location is still undeveloped. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay. What else? What other comments do we have from the community?
Any other comments?
I have a question.
Pete has a question.
In terms of the streets and the sidewalks and the roadways, it's become very, very clear recently that what's in the underground on Main Street, as well as is South Main Street, the water and the sewer systems, as an example, are old, and once we start rebuilding the streets and the sidewalks and all, is it appropriate to evaluate our sewer system, our water lines, so that if we're going to expend all this time and money and effort to reconstruct these areas, only to find out that we've got to disrupt them at a later date because we've got an ancient sewer line or water line, it would be devastating to disrupt this new area to repair it. And just recently we had an incident at the Manson House on Main Street, and only to find out that the water line that feeds that street had some severe problems, and we had to go up Manson Street to make a connection and a tie-in because of the aged system that exists there. And it's just a clear example that, the sewer and water line is 1930s vintage, 1940s vintage, and is this an opportunity to correct some of those issues before you do this reconstruction and do these kinds of things? Is that appropriate?
So Peter, yes it is, and it is part of our study scope. So we have in our scope to meet with the Public Works Director. I think it's Don Shue. I don't know if he's present tonight or not. Okay. Nice to see you, Donnie.
Nice to see you too.
We went to school together. So it is in our scope. We are going to look at that, Peter. We're going to look at the existing utilities to make an assessment on whether they should be replaced and what the cost of that replacement might be as part of this overall study. I would say with the DOT doing the rehabilitation project, has that question come up? Because I have done other DOT roadway projects where they actually pumped the brakes and said, wait a minute, your utilities are very old. We're going to not rebuild our project until you upgrade your utilities and time it out to do it together. It's more cost effective. But when they rebuild the road, there's usually a moratorium of 5 years where they don't want anybody out there ripping up the road. So I guess I would pose this question to Kathy or Donnie Shue. Has there been any coordination with DOT regarding the existing utilities as it relates to the roadway project?
We have provided information to DOT. They have not issued any concerns. They realize that the town has obtained as much clean water state revolving loan funds as we can, as well as ARPA funds, at least for the sewer. We usually don't qualify for the drinking water because our rates are so low. So part of this project is to look at the utilities and then hopefully be able to apply for some federal monies from other sources that we could be eligible for these projects.
Okay.
Good.
And we're, at DOT, we're very excited to have this type of synergy because, you know, Mr. Biggie is right. We don't want to go through and do a mill and fill, possibly a full rehab in some components, just have to rip it all up again, which we've done before. We're used to looking bad publicly, but we're trying to work on our image a little. But that's another component of this process too, is we can look at those assessments, and then, you know, we can also be a technical resource to help the municipality with going after those federal grants later on through this process. So it helps us, it helps the town, and we think, you know, it also in the end saves the people of the state of Maine a bit of money too.
We have a question here in the audience.
Yes, Brent Newhouse.
Yeah, I just want to add on to what Peter just mentioned on the sewer and water, and hopefully we're not talking about just the mains. I've been personally involved with a lot of these repairs, and it's the services going to the homes that need to be addressed as well. You know, a recommendation whether we TV all the existing sewer lines, you know, or that type of thing, if funds can be available to do that. I mean, that's, the mains may be fine, or they may not, but it's the services going into the homes that are critical.
When we've been able to get the drinking water funds and the clean water funds, the state has allowed us to put in the lines to the homes as part of that project. In the businesses.
Yeah, at least get to the right of way.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's would be my concern, to make sure that's addressed.
We're only eligible for a certain amount of money through these two state programs, so it's thought that once we get this project done, we'll be able to apply to the federal government for additional monies to deal with the utilities.
Thank you.
Yeah, to build off what Kathy said, Brent, that's correct. Typically, they would replace the services at least to the right of way line.
Okay, thank you.
So, I also on the utility front I'm sharing my screen now, and I wanted to kind of show this to the group. You guys know this. Nick may not know it, but you're pretty unique. Your Main Street's pretty unique. You've got something kind of special here. You don't have overhead utilities. A lot of communities would desire to have a Main Street that looks like this. All of your utilities, your power and communications have been put underground, or they're on the back side of the block. But somebody had the forethought. Some of your forefathers had the forefront to plan ahead, and so you've got a great palette here to build off of, knowing that all the overhead utilities are already taken care of. Now, do they need to be upgraded? That's a discussion that can be had, but that's not cheap these days. Mr. Vicky will know, doing construction work, underground utilities can be very expensive. So the fact that you have it on your main street is a great start, at least in your downtown area.
Does anyone have any other comments on items we should look at? We've got Jan Lux in the back.
Just a quick question here. I'm looking around the room, and I'm probably one of the oldest people sitting in here. When you take a look at the age of the population in town, we are an older community right now. So as new things are developed and so forth, I would hope that, whether it be transportation, walking, or whatever, that the age of the members of the community would be part of that study also.
So all of our recommendations will be what we call ADA compliant, so they'll be designed to accommodate all levels of individuals, all ages of individuals. And so, feedback from the community based on age, if there's a certain desire or a certain interest, it can vary. It can be as simple as just sidewalks on both sides of the street. You only have sidewalk on one side and you want it on the other side. It could be more elaborate where you want an esplanade, a green space, and some landscaping to kind of separate the walkers from the road. But it could be even more robust where maybe it's a multi-use path. So it's wider on one side of the road and it accommodates not only pedestrians, but people with strollers, counter to what the gentleman just said, but also people on bicycles. And something like that may be more appealing for younger kids on bicycles as opposed to asking them to share the road or the shoulder of the road. So I think there's some opportunities there. To me, it's like, okay, if we're going to do something like that, where do we start, where do we end? What are our start and destinations, things like that, I think are something that we want to think through in the community, so that whatever we implement is going to be successful. And I think it will. I build off what Jared said. Many times these infrastructure projects, when you build it, they will come. They'll see the opportunity, and you'll see businesses come, desire to be at this location because of the infrastructure that's been built. So, but we want to make sure it's well planned. So, I'll throw something out there. And it may be pie in the sky, but the Sebasticook River from Manson Park into town somehow, and up to Mill Pond, and maybe heading up on North Main Street. If we could have a pathway, a river walk. I don't know if it's feasible. Like I said, it could be pie in the sky, but those are some of the outside of the box thinking that I think we as a group should at least consider. It may fall off the list pretty quick for a variety of reasons. I know the railroad track crossing of the Sebasticook, there'd be some challenges trying to get a pathway through there, but could we re-envision some of Manson Park to maybe make it more pedestrian friendly right along the river? Right now we've got that parking lot, which has been like that since I was a kid 40 years ago. Is now the time that maybe we put some energy into revisiting that and creating, and still providing parking, but creating an opportunity to enjoy the river and walk the river. It's a beautiful river when it's flowing, when it's not flooding the park. So those are just some comments. Kathy, I'll hand it back to you for more input from the audience up there.
All right, very good. Any other thoughts that people have, items they want to make sure get mentioned?
So,
I just want to follow up quickly on what Don was talking about in saying pie in the sky, and really encourage Pittsfield, members of the committee, members of the community, when they come to public engagement sessions throughout this process, to really dream big. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity that we have in rural Maine to make investments in our transportation infrastructure, not only in rehabbing it, but also into thinking about what are the new things and what are the things that are needed for changing demographics. ADA compliance is the law, and universal design is wonderful in that it does accommodate more than just one user on the system. It really looks for who are the vulnerable users and who are the users that we need to be thinking of accommodations for. But in doing that, you create a really great transportation system. So long as I never hear the R word, I don't want to hear recreation. If you tell me that this is purpose-built infrastructure for active transportation, non-motorized transportation, and connectivity for vulnerable users, this will fly for a raise grant. We package the entire program big money. It is all about safety, accessibility, and connectivity. So I'm going to really encourage Pittsfield to have that wish list, dream big, and wait for the feds to tell you no. Because honestly, what we're seeing right now is we can have the nice things that we've dreamed about and once had to.
So I'm going to jump in, Don. This is Mike Chiquette. Question for you on this. I know maybe I'm jumping the gun on your process here. I know asking for ideas, feeling kind of compelled to have specifics or more focused ideas. I'm wondering, I would assume that we would have an opportunity with some of your maps that you have or some outlines or general ideas, and kind of distribute that to the public and have a open meeting, a public meeting, have everyone kind of speak their mind, or maybe a way that we can get feedback documented or on an online basis. I assume that's probably in the process you would consider.
Yes, Mike. So yeah, I think we can do that. So this is kind of what we do for a living. So we're more than happy to throw ideas out on the wall, see what sticks. So if you guys, not sure what you want, we certainly can come to the table with the ideas. We just wanted to make sure that we're not giving you the chance to tell us your ideas. Because if you have ideas, we'd like to hear it first and foremost. Because you have committees up there, we want to make sure that if there's a vision, if there's a visionary vision out there of what you're hoping specifically you'd like to get out of this project, we want to hear that. Otherwise, yeah, we're going to look quarter-wise, study-wide, and make recommendations. You have pedestrian accommodations through here. Your Main Street, I was just sharing the screen. That hasn't changed since I was growing up in that community. So it's dated. It's 20, 30, 40 years. It was great for its time. I mean, you got on-street parking, you got curb extensions. You have not only different surface treatments. Looks like you have pavers and the curb extensions, and maybe concrete sidewalks. So I mean, it wasn't a cheap gig when it was done. It's older now. So is there an opportunity to do a refresh, a revisit of that corridor? So we're going to look at the existing infrastructure, see how we can improve and build on that. But then the big visions. We're gonna throw some things out there, and we'll see what sticks. I mean, this boardwalk idea, this riverwalk idea. If you can have that, people might come to your community just to walk that. And when they come to your community to walk that, guess what? They're going to want to stop and get a cup of coffee. They're going to want to stop and eat at a restaurant. All of a sudden, you have stores that show up there that people, as they're walking on this boardwalk, hey, let's go in and check this out. So it just organically it grows. So I'm not saying that's our solution. It doesn't even need to be along the river. You might find there's another very nice pedestrian-friendly opportunity in your community. Like I said, your Manson Park is fabulous, and it's unique. There aren't many towns that have what you have at Manson Park. So there's a golden opportunity there. You guys know it. I mean, I assume, is the Central Maine Festival still happening there every year, or is that disappeared?
Not at this time. COVID sort of put an end to it, but we're bringing back an agricultural farming event.
But I mean, that was there for years and years and years, and it drew a lot of folks from the area. So, I think there's opportunities. It might be answer your question. Yes, we'll come forward with some ideas. It can be floated within this immediate study team and broadcasted out to the general public as well.
All right, thank you, Don. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right, Kathy, I'm going to give you the floor one more time to see if there's any other comments from the audience regarding local issues, items that you're hoping the study will address, visions, big wishes. What would you like as an outcome on the study?
All right, one more time here. You'll have other opportunities, but we just wanted to get as many ideas and items to look at the beginning. Anyone have anything they want to talk about or check into?
I just want to compliment John for the comment about the Riverwalk. I just want to remind you that there's only one landowner all the way from Manson Park all the way to the Mill Pond. I know that sounds kind of strange to you.
It's not Chimbro, is it?
It might be. But that's irrelevant because, look, we all live here.
Yeah, so
We all live here.
Peter, you're the owner on the, I guess it'll be the east side.
Pardon me?
What's he saying?
Yeah.
On the east side of the river.
On the west side, it's
It would be the upstream all the way from Manson Park, all the way to the mill pond.
all right. So
Right, on the east side.
on this side
Keep
right
all the-
here,
Yeah.
you're correct.
You would call it east side, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's also on the, I guess the Puritan medical side, there's again probably, I think they own that entire.
No, they don't.
No.
No, they don't.
Down in here,
They're occupied.
okay, all right.
Got it?
Yeah, so I think, and so what's interesting in Peter's comment is that that side of the river is not the same side as Manson Park, which I would see as a destination or starting point. So, but that doesn't mean there's not a pedestrian bridge in play here. So we know we've got the snowmobile bridge further down. There's our snowmobile. You guys can see my screen.
Yep.
So there's the snowmobile bridge. So we do have a bridge, but I wouldn't say it would be ADA compliant per se, unless you guys have rebuilt it. But there definitely could be an opportunity if the landowner, like we said, is one landowner. There could be an opportunity to have a pedestrian bridge crossing and then a river walk on the opposite side that gets us all the way up to Mill Pond. And then when we get up here, some type of crossing, and maybe we run it on the west side of North Main Street for some distance. I don't know the ultimate destination, but
Anything's possible.
you know, again, your community is unique. You've got Sebastopol River that runs right through it.
All the way to Pinnacle Park.
Okay.
It's true.
One big
All
house.
right. All the way to Pinnacle. So you're going all the way over here.
There's a big change coming in the railroad.
Oh,
Could be.
very nice.
There is.
So you're talking off alignment, following the river all the way up. So not on the roadway corridor, but following the river edge.
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So, again, Puritan Medical, I don't know if they own the building, the old SAS building, but, so again, here we go. We've got some ideas flowing. I think those are pretty cool. You create something like that that's got some lineage, it creates frontage, it creates opportunities for development. And people would come here to specifically walk that trail. So I think it's pretty cool. All right. Okay, we have comments from the audience.
I think we are.
Okay, thank you. So I'll continue on the agenda. I'm on to item 4 on the agenda. I think we kind of touched base on a few of these. Let me see if I can minimize my screen. I guess I'm not sharing. Actually, that's pretty good. See if I can find that again. Here we go. All right. Let's share screen. All right, we zoomed out a little bit. So obviously, I wrote down areas of interest. So these are areas that I can see as opportunities, destinations. I mentioned pocket parks, but these could have pedestrian amenities, park benches. You could have gazebos, things like that. And I know you already have them, say at Heffron Park and other places, but there's opportunities here for people. We mentioned the elderly population. Well, it's kind of nice to be able to go to a place, walk to a place, visit a place, enjoy a place, public gardens, things like that. We have Nick on our team that can do some pretty amazing stuff in pocket parks. So I've written down Lower Main Street. I guess I'm going to jump around a bit, but I've written down Lower Main Street, which is down here. I always use the landmark of Richie's Pizza. Amazed that it's still in business, but it was there when I was there. So Lower Main Street, I think I can share another graphic. Yeah, probably not the best, but here's a view. Are you guys seeing that okay? A photo and some text.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a picture down near Lower Main Street, and so there is a sidewalk on the MCI side, on the industrial park side. No sidewalk on the other side. You've got open drainage down in there, so you got ditches, no curbing. So Lower Main Street, we're going to take a look at that. Should there be sidewalks on both sides? There are really no shoulders either. You got a little bit of gravel shoulders, so you're really not accommodating bikes. So should the footprint change down through there? Should we look at maybe building some shoulders? It may be that we have to curve that area, landscape with an Esplanade and sidewalks on one side or both sides. The sidewalk that's there is pretty narrow, probably not ADA compliant. In doing so, we might go in the ditch and go with closed drainage, like we do on Upper Main Street downtown. So those are some of the things we're thinking of that area. Then you start heading up the hill into town. This is in front of MCI. So obviously the road, I think, will be rebuilt. The shoulders will be rebuilt. We've got sidewalk on that side, but not on the opposite side in this area. We're familiar with this, at least at a high level. So MCI, they cut all their trees down. I think they're re-envisioning their campus. And it looks like it's going to be a different connection here. It looks like they're removing some of the cut-through streets. So they're trying to make it more pedestrian friendly, and we build off of that. Can we create some synergy between that project and our project to create a common theme, not only at NCI's campus, but carrying it down Main Street? So this is some of the stuff that we'd like to think through. I don't know the status of this project, this MCI project. Is it still in planning or?
Yes.
Okay. So
Donnie, one other thing. If you look at this athletic field here and go to the right, even further these are the girls' athletic fields. There's a soccer field there as well as a field hockey field. And if you go further all the way to South Main Street, I don't know if you can bring that map.
I can't.
Okay, you probably can't. But and I know you'll remember this property. It's the property that was owned by the Craignalls. You remember that property? On South Main Street? You just had it on your map when you showed South Main Street. Keep coming. Keep coming. Whoa, your arrow's pretty close. Just, there's a little house, a little gray dot. Move, go the other way, toward the athletic field. Whoa, you just went over. See the circle? See the circle? Okay, just go to the right. You're right. Yeah, right there. See that building? It's not there anymore. And all of that property, that entire lot, is now owned by MCI, and that will be an entrance for parking as well as access egress to the girls' athletic fields, which means that we're going to need, what there is now is a 24-inch culvert that's wide enough for a driveway. This is going to have to be expanded somewhat to enhance this road that will have parking on both sides as well as a parking lot at the end of the athletic fields. Make sense?
It does make sense, and I think that's a great idea.
Yep.
So, are there any sports at NCI that are still using Manson Park? Or are they all using the?
No, the baseball teams are using that and other activities. I think field hockey's down there as well.
The tennis.
And the tennis is down. The tennis courts are down there. That's right.
Softball might be down there.
Yep.
Okay.
Softball is down there. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Some things have changed. Okay, so I'll go back to this guy here. So along the Main Street, I'll call it in front of the NCI campus, thinking about some synergy with the campus. We talked about the campus already. We're heading down Main Street. There's sidewalks on both sides. Once you get about halfway towards the railroad tracks, all of a sudden sidewalks do show up on both sides. Kathy, I recall either in in council meeting notes that you guys were removing some of the trees on Main Street. Is that a correct statement? Or not true?
DOT has designated certain trees to come down as part of the expansion further down on what used to be South Main Street for their drainage. There are some other trees that do need to come down, and we did have a couple of planting grants for new trees.
Okay. So, personally, I'm a lover of the old trees, and I get why FCI took their trees down. They outlived their life, probably. But you have some big trees along Main Street, too, which are fantastic. And so, as part of this study, we should probably think about that a little bit. Is that important to maintain what trees are there that are healthy and supplement them with new plantings? Or is there a vision where we want to come through and do something consistent through the whole corridor? And that might mean removing some of those trees. But I just want, when we think about what this will look like when we're done, we want it to be a complete streets project. That's a technical term, where you basically have a roadway corridor that accommodates all modes of transportation. So it equally focuses on vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. And when you think about the pedestrians, you want to think about landscaping opportunities, beautification, because you want it to be a pleasant area to enjoy. So again, I don't want to necessarily say I want to save the trees or take down the trees. That's not my deal. This is the town's deal. But we wanted to kind of think that through a little bit, particularly if DOT is removing a lot of them, and it seems like FCI removes all of them. So don't know the answer, but I mentioned it. I've identified in our proposal the library. Again, very unique. You've got a beautiful library. I think it's nicely designed with nice access points and monuments. Can you build off that at all? You would not want to touch it and say this is sacred. That's okay too. But it's on the end of Main Street before you cross the tracks. Something to think about. The tracks themselves is something that we should think about as well. I mean, we'll have limitations on what the railroad will allow us to do. But you do have the old train station that you've renovated as I think it's a train depot or some term now. Opportunities in that whole area. You guys have done a great job. You have nice fencing in that area. You've renovated the building. So can we build off that and create a common theme, a historic theme, and working it through the other parts of your town that maybe haven't had that same attention? Manson Park. I think we've talked about that enough. You're lucky to have it. It's a fantastic place. A lot of my memories growing up reside in that park. At the time, all of our sporting events took place there, including the football games took place down in that area. So it was a place to be. And then the Egg Festival, which they called something different, a little Central Beach, or called it a little different after I left. The railroad crossing we talked about. So again, you guys have some really good anchors already there. Can we build off of it? So downtown. So Peter, I think you described what's happening downtown better than I can. But I'll acknowledge when I put this proposal together, I saw Kleinschmidt, I saw Rennie's, I saw Stan's Barber, I saw the movie theater. Those were all there when I was growing up. They've been there for 40 plus years, which is pretty cool. Now, Peter, you rained on my parade by saying some are not utilized and some are moving to different parts of town. So that's unfortunate. Let's figure out how we can redevelop that area. But you got great infrastructure. Like I said, all your overhead utilities are underground already. That's a great start as we look to try to enhance that Main Street corridor. You guys, I assume you're still seeing my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
As we head north, we got North Main Street. A little different area. There's a sidewalk, I think, on the west side, heading out of town. But this area doesn't feel very pedestrian friendly, based on my memories. You get through the two intersections in town, you start heading down through here, and it just feels like, okay, it's a highway, I'm ready to pick up speed and start heading out of town. So how do we control traffic in that area? How do we make it more pedestrian and bicycle friendly? So you got water bodies on both sides. You got Mill Pond and Sebastopol River running through there. So, there's opportunity here. I don't know what the answer is going to be. It might be part of that multi-use path or a river walk. I don't know. But, some type of mid-block pedestrian crossing in here with bump outs like you have on Main Street will create a different feel in here. Will force traffic to maybe slow down. Speed is a safety issue. The slower the speeds, the safer the corridor is going to be. So we can probably do that and maybe multiple pedestrian crossings through here, through this section as we head up towards Madawaska Ave. I believe is what you guys doing. Don't know if I have a picture of Madawaska Ave. Let's see what I've got. I don't. So Madawaska Ave, challenging intersection. It's a funky design. It's designed that way based on volumes of traffic, so people coming down the hill have the right of way, but it's a straight shot heading out Madawaska Ave. So it's challenging from a transportation standpoint. We're going to take a look at that intersection. We might actually throw on paper a roundabout there. It feels like it could work, aside from one item, the vertical grades. It's pretty steep. There's a lot of challenges happening there, but that could create. We could look to try to create some type of gateway treatment in that area. We need to consider the profile. It's a very steep grade heading up to the hospital or coming down from the hospital. So, speaking of the hospital, what we've heard, we want pedestrian connectivity to the hospital. There's no sidewalk. Once you get, I think, to Madawaska Ave, the sidewalk continues down Madawaska Ave, and I'm not sure there's much going up the hill. What is the name of the hill? Grove Hill?
Grove Hill, yes.
Yeah, okay. So going up Grove Hill, I don't think we have pedestrian connectivity or connections.
No.
None?
None.
Okay. So I think as part of this study, we're going to look to provide that, at least on one side of the street. And then once we get up to the hospital, we got a little further distance to go to the town line. But I think as a committee, we'll have to decide what improvements we want to make in that area. Maybe it's bicycle. I'm not sure there's a pedestrian demand beyond the hospital, but that's something that we can discuss as part of the study. So I think I identified most of the areas of interest. I was short on discussing some of the other parks. So you've got Half Mountain Park, and I'll share the screen again. So the little clouded graphics that you guys have seen this. So we've got Half Mountain Park here behind me. I'll call it the Main Street block. And then you've got a park across the street near Mill Pond. So are there pedestrian connectivity opportunities? I think you already have crosswalks between these two on Somerset Ave. Can we enhance those? I think right now Somerset Ave's got really wide shoulders. So can we maybe pull those in with some curb extensions to make it a little more pedestrian friendly? All right. I also wrote on my agenda at a larger scale. You've got the airport out down to the south here. You've got the medical park. You've got the golf course. You've got Warsaw and Vickery schools. At least I think Warsaw is active. I don't know about Vickery. So you have other destinations outside of our study area that, as we kind of envision this, they're making future connections that we want to keep. Any questions on item 4? And did we miss it? Go ahead. Did we miss any hot spots in your eyes? Go ahead.
Yeah, we've got Joel Greenwood, our planner.
I know it's outside of the scope of work, but there's a few areas that I think need to be mentioned, and that's where Somerset meets Industrial Park. It's always been, the sidewalk goes nicely up Somerset, and then you kind of get there and it just kind of stops. And that junction's really busy at the best of time by Duncan. Also, just the possibility to be able to walk and bike safely down Industrial Park Road itself. It's 45 miles per hour on there, even though it's an in-town road, and there's no sidewalk, there's no formal bike lane, and that's one way to connect that part of the town back down through Stinson to the south part of Main Street. That's always been something that I've kind of pointed out, that there's no easy, safe way to connect from, say, Dunkin' Donuts all the way down to Bitches.
Any other comments before I move on to the next item on the agenda? All right, hearing none. Next item on our agenda.
We have one.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
speak right up, can't see you.
Sorry. I just kind of like, I'm thinking of all these things as you're talking, and this is wonderful, and I love all the kind of thinking outside the box things that you're talking about. One thing that I thought about as you kept talking was public access and a public pavilion in Manson Park or somewhere along the Riverwalk that you were talking about. I'm just thinking if we know that it's getting hotter and we can have some severe storms come up, to have some place along that Riverwalk area for people to get out of the sun and be able to take shelter if a storm comes up, and provide some space for rest. If older people are walking or people with small children want to have some place to stop and rest, but some type of public pavilion along the way that could have multiple uses would be great.
I think it's a good idea. I saw Nick nodding his head in agreement when you were talking, so we made a note of it. Okay. But I don't think we have any other questions. We're going to jump to the next item on the
Is any thought being given to fixing some of the 900 driveways that comes in up there by Industrial Park? There are driveways coming onto that road from everywhere, and anybody coming out of A.E. Robinson's or any of those other places think they got the right of way over the highway.
So are we talking up here near Duncan on that end?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Because Rennie's is going to go in where Walgreens is, so that's only going to be exacerbating the problem. There's 5 or 6 driveway entrances, all in. There's the doctor's office, there's Duncan, there's Industrial Park, there's A. Robinson, then there's going to be Rennie's, there's the credit union. It's all driveway access within 150 feet of each other.
Yeah, so the short answer to your question, you're not going to like the answer. The short answer is that's outside our study scope. So if the community wants to change the study scope, we're happy to look at it. But right now, I go back to this guy here and say, this is what we're focused on. We can go a little bit beyond those limits, but I would say over by Dunkin' and Donuts is probably out of bounds in the short term. So if there are control access issues down here, near the southern end of Industrial Park Road, where Forest Garage used to be, where the lumber mill is, certainly I did notice, kind of doing a street view through here, there's some large curb cuts. There's some businesses there, and it's just an open area with full access in and out. As part of our study, we will look corridor-wide at access management. Are there areas where their driveway openings are just too big? Should we reduce them? Are they in the wrong space? Wrong location? Should we relocate them? Things like that we'll take a look at and see if we can improve on it. Because why do we do that? If there's a sidewalk there, we're thinking of pedestrian safety. So when you have a big driveway opening like that, and you have a pedestrian or a bicycle driving through that area, it's an area of conflict. And if we can reduce that opening, there's less area of conflict. The bicycles and pedestrians will know more where the vehicles are turning in and out. When it's wide open, it's a free-for-all, and it leads to less safe environment for those other users. Okay, I'm going to move on to item 5 on the agenda. This is kind of an important one. This is our draft purpose and need statement. So with any one of these planning studies that we do, it's really important to establish a purpose and need statement on the outset of the study. Why is it important? Well, we're going to spend time, the next 12 months thereabouts, analyzing this, coming up with thoughts and recommendations. We may have multiple alternatives. When we do that at the end of the study, we're going to need to compare those alternatives to this original purpose and need statement to say, how well do these options meet the purpose and need? And we're going to score them against each other based on how well they meet our purpose and need. So it's really helpful to us. You're going to see through this process that we'll come up with some different options. We'll kind of score them against each other, against this. And in order for it to be a successful study, it kind of needs to meet this purpose and need statement. So I'm going to read through it. There's a lot of text there. It's draft. I put it together without any input from DOT or from the community. So we certainly welcome input on it, and we want to, we can modify it as needed. But I'll read through it, and we certainly can discuss it. So the purpose of this study, along the Main Street corridor from Stetson Road up to the Detroit town line, so we identify our limits, is to identify a range of implementable alternatives to improve safety, mobility, connectivity, accessibility, and placemaking for all modes of transportation, both now and in the future. So that's a mouthful, right? So let's break it up into pieces and talk about it. Implementable. That term there. It's really important that whatever we recommend is constructible and buildable. It's going to meet DOT standards. This is a DOT road first, right? It's a state aid road. I assume, is this in the urban compact, and does Don Shoot Public Works have to plow this road, or is DOT plow it?
We plow it.
The town plows
We
it?
plow it, yeah. They do summer maintenance,
So
we
you have an
do
urban
winter.
compact.
Yes.
Yes.
So you guys maintain the road or plow the road, but the DOT, I believe, still owns the road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So whatever we come up with recommendations, we need to make sure it meets their standards. They have set rules, set design standards for the project. Jeff has already pulled together some of those baseline standards of how wide does the travel lane and shoulders need to be for a road like this. So we need to make sure we adhere to those standards. So when we're done, whatever our recommendations are, need to be able to be constructed and approved by the agency. We're looking to improve safety. That's a common theme. Mobility, connectivity. For me, it's a lot of pedestrian connectivity. Accessibility. Again, a lot of pedestrian accessibility. We talk about an older community. Let's make sure that this is all accessible from an ADA standpoint and easy to use. Placemaking, I kind of added in there. That's where Nick comes in and plays a role in this. I think there's opportunities to create these areas of placemaking, destinations. Whether it's just a sitting area, a scenic view along the river, or a scenic view on a campus to look out and enjoy, and maybe there's some other features that exist there. So placemaking is important, and we say for all transportation, not only now, but well into the future. So we're forecasting this out 20, 30, 40 years from now. We want to envision what this might look like. Everybody good with the purpose?
Quick note, Don, I think you probably meant Stinson Street, not Stetson.
I probably did. I refer to it as Industrial Park Road. So
Yeah, the same here.
Yeah, so sorry.
Yeah, we got another gentleman, yeah. Speak right up.
Kind of going back to it ties into the scope because it's mentioned in there, and now I'm thinking of it. I was just wondering, is it necessary to go all the way to the town line on the Detroit town line, or do you think we could probably just go as far as maybe Leighton Street, just after the hospital? I just don't know if there's any need to go right to the town line because I'm not sure how much that last little stretch might, unless someone can tell me something that there should be good reason to. I think Leighton Street might be a good point to end because that connects back down south. So,
Development going out there.
Sidewalk.
yeah.
So Joel, the reason why we went all the way to the town line rather than stopping at the hospital is that the paving projects will stop at the town line. So we'd have a gap there. If we had this whole project that goes up to the hospital, there could be, depending on when things are paved, a gap that doesn't get paved that gets, once they do the work from Detroit town line on. So we wanted to make sure that didn't happen. That has happened to towns before.
It would affect the general paving projects.
It could.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Oh,
If
okay.
I could just jump in, it depends on what we're coming up with. We don't exactly know yet. I'm kind of, sure, if we're doing roadway work to the town line, then I agree with Kathy's statement that we should run it to the limits of the DOT's project. If we think of timing, the DOT project, I'm assuming, will go out to construction in the next 1, 2, 3 years. Would that be a fair assessment?
Should be.
Yes. We definitely hope so.
I suppose it's fine. I think it's good. It's a good reason. I mean, it's only about 300 more feet. So.
Yeah, I think you already had your public meeting, preliminary public meeting, so they're probably a year from advertisement would be my guess, maybe 2 at most. And when I think of what we're doing for a study, I don't see this being ready for for implementation in the next 3 years. So I think there's going to be a gap between when the DOT does their project and when this project comes through. So unless, I guess to answer the gentleman's question, unless as we look at this area, once you get beyond the hospital, it feels rural, it feels high speed, it feels like pedestrian accommodations is not as needed in that environment. You have Dogtown Road. I don't think there's any sidewalks on Dogtown Road. I don't think there's any sidewalks on North Main Street heading towards. So I don't know what the answer is, but I wouldn't be surprised as part of the outcome of the study that we have pedestrian connections to the hospital or to, like you said, Layton Street. And they are maybe they go to Dogtown Road and end there.
Yeah, the DOT work plan has the rehabilitation work in 24-25, but again, that can also change depending on.
Okay, good. Okay, so we talked about the purpose. I also have a paragraph on the needs. They're interrelated. I'll read it to you as well. The needs of this study include improving safety within the downtown area and along Main Street corridor, controlling excessive speeds, entering town. And I look to you for feedback whether you actually think you have a speed issue. I know you have your own town police department, so I always thought they did a good job enforcing it. But I don't know if speed is an issue. Is there a speed issue coming through town?
At different locations, yes.
Okay.
We're working on it.
Okay. So controlling excessive speeds, providing better connectivity between the schools, the parks, the natural resources, which is your streams and your ponds, and public spaces within the study area. Improving geometry and operations at key intersections. We'll talk about that in a bit. And providing for improved access management within the corridor. One thing that's missing from that, and it was Peter Vigou's comment, is the land use aspect of it. So we might need to roll something in there as it relates to land use. So any opposition for us modifying that a little bit to discuss and reference the importance of land use and redevelopment?
Nothing here.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe something to do with enhancing like local business, but I guess that's it's tied into the same kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, let me see if we can modify that a bit. All right, so any questions on item 5? Okay, we're going to jump to item 6. Probably out of order, but item 6 is our design team. So it's already been kind of discussed. The study team lead will be Goral Palmer. We'll head up all of the transportation planning, the facilitation of meetings like this. We're going to look at the safety aspects, the safety audits. We'll look at utilities, and we'll provide all the engineering kind of backstory to this planning study. We have Nick Aceto on our team, Aceto Landscaping and Architects. They're going to help us out with the placemaking opportunities. That's why I thought it was really important that he's on the call today, so he can hear from you guys, what you'd like to see if possible through this area. So he'll do the placemaking, he'll do the pedestrian, the connectivity. He wants to, I highlighted over here, he's really good at creating pedestrian-friendly communities, and that's a fact. So I think there's an opportunity where we can leverage that with the study. So I have listed here wayfinding as well. We haven't talked about it yet, but that's basically signage. A lot of times in these studies, there's a theme to the implementation, the landscaping, the lighting, if we want lighting, something different than the Cobra lights on utility poles. But there might be street signs, and if you have a river walk or some type of pedestrian trail, are there points of interest with placemaking signs that inform and educate? So there's opportunities for that. So the client team, as mentioned, Town of Pittsfield, DOT, and KP Cog. It's kind of three parties. The KP Cog may help us a little bit with the redevelopment planning aspect of things. And then the lead on the overall study will be the town. All right. Any questions so far? We good to go on to item 7? I see a couple, at least one hand. Go ahead.
Just really quick, is there can you guys provide your email contacts to so we can have a method of communication?
Yeah, well, so Kathy has our email contact, so just work with Kathy. If you're sending us stuff directly, please CC Kathy on this, so she's informed. Obviously, we don't want to get 1,000 emails from different parties, so we can try to funnel it. But if you're a town official or that, feel free. So if you're somebody from the public, I'd request maybe send it to Kathy and have Kathy send it our way. But Kathy will have our contact information. All right, I'm going to go to item 7. I don't see any hands raised, so I'm going to go to item 7, which is, and I'll try to be brief on this. It discusses our scope of work. So when we submitted our proposal, we gave a price, we gave the community a price, as well as these are the tasks we're going to do. It was kind of outlined to us as part of the RFQ. So the request for qualifications was pretty well spelled out. So some of the next steps we're going to do, we're going to start collecting or reviewing available data, traffic counts at key intersections, crash data. It's all available on the DOT's website. So we pull the crash data for the whole corridor and review that. Look at existing land use data, GIS data. If the town has a GIS database, we'd like to get access to that. That'll help with our base mapping and reviewing that stuff. Kathy, do you guys have such a thing, or I think you said you did not?
We did not.
I do.
Yeah, Ron does.
Okay.
So we should be on that.
Thank you. We'll reach out.
Yeah, and there's we already did in 2016. We did a bicycle pedestrian study funded through the DOT, which actually includes the inventory of a lot of stuff already, and I've got all the raw GIS data for that as well. So.
Okay. So are you Joel?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joel.
No problem. I do happen to live in town too, so.
Okay, good. All right. The comprehensive plans, things like that, we'll try to pull future development information. So if there are, Peter, did you mention that, okay, Rennie's is moving to a different part of town. That's the opposite of what we want to hear, but if we hear, if you guys are aware of development coming within the corridor, we want to hear that so we can kind of plan around it. And then the next item we're going to do is assess the current conditions. So we're going to kind of do an audit. We're going to do a safety audit. We're going to do an existing conditions audit. What do you have for infrastructure that's good, that's bad, and we'll summarize that into a memo. So basically it'll be an existing conditions memo. That's when we're going to look at utilities with Don Chu. We'll look at your on-street parking, what you might have or not have. We'll look at deficiencies. We'll do an environmental screening as well. Very high level desktop screening. We'll probably work with Joel a little bit to help us out with that. And then we're going to do traffic analysis. And it's really at, I think it's 2 or 3 key intersections. It's going to be, I guess I'm still sharing my screen. So it's going to be Somerset Ave and Main Street where the signal is. So we're going to take a look at that from an operation standpoint, from a safety standpoint, and from a mobility standpoint. One observation that I have is it's a tightly confined intersection because you have existing buildings, at least on the Main Street side, and it makes turning movements for larger trucks a bit challenging. So that's something that we'll have to talk about, whether it's acceptable the way it is. I know Chimbro is probably one of the primary users of that area for truck traffic, so it seems to work okay, but I think when we run turning movements, we'll come back and say, it doesn't work so great for trucks, but that the solutions to solve that may not be something that the town is interested in doing. So, and on the opposite side, you have the 2 gas stations. So we'll look at those turning movements and make recommendations for any improvements. And then the other intersection is heading out of town, Madawaska Ave intersection. So it's unsignalized. We'll take a look. It might be a high crash location. I don't know. If not, I'd be surprised. But it's challenging. If you're coming down Madawaska Ave, you just keep driving straight, not realizing that you have to stop again. So we may do some geometric improvements. I think even DOT might be recommending some geometric improvements at that location. So we'll build off that. And then the third intersection, which really I don't think is part of our study for analysis, but I think it should be discussed with the community, and that's it's Honeywell Ave at Main Street. So it's a simple T intersection. Signals have been there since I was a kid. I think they're on flash mode more than they actually operate. Do they ever operate? Are they always on flash mode?
They work most of the time.
They're always just flashing. I don't think I've ever seen them.
Okay. So when you say they're working, are they just flashing?
Yeah, just flashing. I think I don't think I've ever seen them cycle through. I think they just flash.
They just flash. Okay. And maybe that's fine. And there might be a strategic reason to keeping those there, keeping them flashing. But we can certainly talk about that as part of the study. Well, as a kid, I think it did work. They did operate, but it seemed like the older I got, the more times they were on flashing. So, for what it's worth. All right. So those are the intersections. We're going to take a look at the whole corridor, the study area, and look at safety. We're going to look at vehicle speeds. We're going to look at sidewalks. We're going to look at curbing, curb extensions, basically bump outs or bump ins to reduce crosswalk distances. Are there some crosswalks? You think of where the library is going down to Manson Park. That's a pretty prominent crosswalk. I don't think there are flashers there today. Pedestrian flashers?
No.
Okay. So it's a mid-block crossing. Is there an opportunity to basically formalize that crossing, to create maybe a multi-use path down to Manson Park? And in doing so, do we create an opportunity there where we might have some flashing pedestrian push buttons? I say that, I pause a bit because we're pretty close to the railroad tracks, which also has flashers, so we just need to make sure that we're not violating the standards and putting flashers there. But that's a location that kind of jumps out to me almost immediately as an opportunity for curb extensions and things like that. We're going to look at shoulders for bikes, shoulder widths, lane widths, refuge islands, center islands, things like that. On-street parking, landscaping, lighting, wayfinding, which is signage, street amenities. Little pocket parks, benches, plaques, opportunities for things like that. So we're going to develop concept plans, and it's going to be, I think, at 2 levels. Typically, when we work with Nicosito, we end up with kind of 2 levels of concept plans. Nick is going to work on what I call landscaping type planning, graphics and concepts. They're really kind of cool. And then we build off of that with some engineering graphics, probably using aerials. So here's an aerial image. This is probably part of our base mapping. So we'll work off aerials. So we'll put some engineering type graphics. It's still going to be just a pretty picture and plan view, but we'll be supported with true lane widths and shoulders and things like that. So you'll get a combo of those. You'll also get from Nick some isometric views, what it might look like if we build certain things in a 3D view. So you'll get some visionary graphics, which are really important on studies like this. So we'll do that. We'll put cost estimates together too. So as part of this study and this report, here's what we're recommending, here's how much it's going to cost. And it's total project cost, not just construction, design, inspection, right-of-way acquisition. We take a stab at all those costs, so it'll be a total project cost. I mentioned scenario comparison. We may come up with 2 or 3 different scenarios or options. We'll compare those to the purpose and need and make a recommendation which we think is the best moving forward. So that will be part of the study. And then public input and outreach. Today's a great first meeting. I think we plan for at least 4 team meetings with the town and at least 2 public/council meetings through this process. The process is going to take place over about 12 months. So we're open to other meetings. They probably be like this forum, would be more Zoom. If we have information to present, Zoom is a low-cost option for us. And so if we have strategic points, but maybe not a meeting point, we can always do something like this. And then we'll do draft upon the whole process. Any questions on our scope of work?
Yeah, Don, quick question for you, Mike Chiquette here. For the public outreach and coordination, I kind of alluded to it previously when you were talking about section 3, I believe it is, goals and objectives, look for ideas and whatnot. So having public input, is that what you anticipate with these 2 council/public meetings, or is that not counted for? I mean, we could come up with some great ideas, but I'm sure there's some ideas out there that citizens would want to entertain.
Yeah, so I apologize. It was Mike, right? I apologize.
Yeah, Mike didn't get right. Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen. They reminded me I wasn't sharing my screen, so I apologize on that. So I think your question was public input and when we would present the vision and these ideas. I think it's going to happen as part of meeting number one. So what we're going to do, meeting number one, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to do that we're going to collect data or collect the data from our client, both DOT and the town. We're going to review all that data. We're going to do existing condition assessment and a memo. At that point, I think we're ready to present to the town and to potentially the public and council. And I think at that point, we're going to have some ideas. So whether we have supporting graphics for those ideas or not, I don't want to invest a lot of graphic effort if the idea is not something that's supported by the town. So, but that's, I think, we have the frame, we've heard a lot tonight, and the framework is there on these ideas. I'm sure we've probably got 4 or 5 more that are going to come out of this conversation, but the framework is there as to what we're thinking. And so, yes, we would present those again before we started putting them, designing them on graphics and start to visualize them.
Okay, so just a comment on the extra graphics, I don't think that's really necessary. The 2 graphics that you had already presented were the showing the scope of work from the hospital down past Stinson, just highlighting in red, and the other one was highlighting the various parks and areas of interest. Just having those 2, that really defines the scope significantly. That one, and the other one you had, there you go, those 2.
Okay.
I mean, if we just had that to share, before or even during the meetings that you plan on having public input, the council input, I mean, that would really help people kind of get an idea of what we're talking about.
Yep. No, I think those are great, Mike, and I'll let you and Kathy decide on if you want to vary from this, if you want to go to a formal public meeting sooner than later. I've done that. We did that in the town of Old Orchard Beach last year, where we signed a contract and we went to public meeting within 2 weeks. And we had a room full of people from the public that were interested in the project. So if we think that's the case in Pittsfield, more than happy to go right to a public meeting if we think we want to collect more ideas from those folks that are not present tonight. So I'll leave that to you, Mike, and maybe talk to Dan.
All right, we'll do. Yeah, we'll talk with the council. You certainly don't want to bite off more than you chew, and certainly don't want to subvert the system that you've obviously done many times before. So we'll discuss it, though. Thank you for that, though, Don.
Okay, very good. Jared, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I just want to add a quick comment that, on DOT's perspective, the way Don Palmer and Esquito has laid out the public engagement, that meets the letter of what we need to straight face test. We've done public engagement when we applied for the federal race grant. That being said, this is the first kickoff meeting I've had so many people in the audience with. At first I was a little overwhelmed, but it's actually refreshing to see that you've got a community that's engaged and interested in this. If there is, something that the town wants to do regarding public engagement outside of what's in the scope and what we have, negotiated with, Coral Palmer, I'm your regional planner for DOT, and, we do have Katie Cobb, which does have a rural contract. There might be something that we could do. Sorry, Joe, I'm putting you on the spot. There might be something that we could do without necessarily having to have the consultants come down, if it's a charrette thing, and then we can provide the data back to the consultants based on what a community event has. I'm flexible, and I will say that the department is very excited about this project, and so this is, one that we want to make sure we definitely get right, and that we have a lot of supporting public documentation so that we can say to the feds, this has happened. But that's something we can talk about later, Catherine. Michael, we can work those details out. But as it is right now, it meets the letter of what we need. But if there is things that the town is envisioning doing more, this is an exciting time. So just let me know, and I will work with you.
All right, thank you, Jared.
Thank you so much.
I have kind of 2 questions. One of them is to kind of follow up on what you're talking about public outreach. Within the plan, is there any guidance that you can give the town as far as like a communication plan to the general public to make sure that like during this process that we have really good outreach as well as at the end of it to communicate changes and things that might be happening as a result of that? Is there a communication plan like footprint that you utilize or anything like that?
Jared, do you want to take a stab at that, or you want me to?
Sure. There is not. It's municipality by municipality, so it would be up to what, at least on our end at DOT, we're not in the driver's seat for this, and this is not our project, so you will not see this on DOT's webpage with updates for Pittsfield. This is a locally administrated project. That being said, it's whatever means the town has available to it and it sees fit. The really important part, though, for this process is, that first public meeting where, it is advertised, where the public is allowed to come and have its feedback, and at the very end of the process, when the consultants are presenting, at least from my experience and from our perspective at DOT, where you get a really good, active discussion and a time to communicate the vision, which largely comes from the purpose and need. And, Millinocket is a town where we had a really great final meeting with the consultants, and there was a lot of members of the community who had not been involved in the process at all. And they were initially very skeptical of it, but after allowing the consultants, DOT, the municipalities to discuss the project, why it was important, and then to have other members of the public say why this was a very important project. One was this actually 86-year-old lady who stood up and said, I'm 86 years old and I want to walk to the grocery store as long as I possibly can for as long as I'm alive. You, mister, who drives everywhere, guess what? This is important to me and other people. And she was able to turn an opinion around. And so you can get a lot accomplished in those sort of very limited to public meetings that are very successful. But as far as the delivery, the messaging, the timing, there is no communication plan. It really just follows, whatever the municipality's guidance is from, Maine Municipal Association on our end.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question was, are you thinking, it says here the technical memo will be around May 30th. Are you thinking June for the first meeting?
I have written down, so a little on the bottom, I had July and December I was thinking for the meetings. It's flexible, we can vary it as needed, but I was thinking more July. So the technical memo, so I guess I do have a little bit out of sequence based on what I said earlier. It looks like I had the technical memo, which is the existing condition memo, in May, and then I have us doing planning, design, and meetings in the summer months. So we probably spend a month or two kind of half-baking some of these concepts before we go forward to the public. So we're pretty flexible. We'll work with the town. We do have kind of a set number of meetings in our proposal. I will mention, while I prefer to be there in person tonight, and I'm sure you guys would rather be there in person tonight, this is a productive tool, and if you guys do want to have another meeting earlier in the process, if I can do it via Zoom, I'll offer that to you. I'm more than happy to do our part to help facilitate this while still staying within our budget. So even if it's multiple meetings, I think it's important to make sure we have a successful study. So I will do my part to try to make it successful. I also will offer to the town, if there's a forum for informing the public in your community, whether it's the town website or other means, if you need graphics or supporting documentation to put on that forum, again, I will offer that. Again, my goal here is to get public support, get public involvement, and come up with a recommended study plan that's supported by them.
Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Jared has his hand up there.
Yeah, one thing I just want to to mention too is, what's great about this process and why we love it at DOT is we get these great consultants who crank out great work, and we can kind of sit back and focus on other things. And that's what we put a lot of, Nick, Don, we put a lot of, I guess, emphasis or trust, and it's really great trust because they do great work that, we can just say, here's the project, here's the scope, here's the public involvement that we need, go do something, and it can be done in a very timely manner. I do also want to say that it's good to balance how much public involvement you're going to have, because my goal is to get this done as soon as possible, and as soon as this is done with those conceptual level renderings and all the document is put together, I'm going to be bringing this to the people at DOT who make more money than me on the upper floor, saying, all right, I've got one ready, let's go to the race grant so that I can start getting trucks rolling in Pittsfield as fast as possible. I'm not trying to rush this through. I want to get this done right, and this kid needs to get out of my room, go away, Leah. That one's my civil engineer. The younger one's my chemical engineer. The engineers in the room will get the joke. There's a lot of Lego battles here. But I do want to try and get this done within the window that we have collaborative legislation and PRU in it right now. So that we have time within the frame that Don has laid out, but I don't want to give there too much. I want to get this done for Pittsfield and get you all the nice stuff.
So I also will build on that for Michael and Kathy. When we start getting into that think tank area where we're thinking through how we want to do this, whether it's in that public forum or not, we might have regular Zoom calls where we just sit down and be able to present ideas to a smaller group, ideally. I'm sure there's some other interested folks in the audience that would want to participate in that. I don't have a problem doing that. Again, if we're sitting in the office and we're zooming into something like this, it's cost-wise, it's a wash versus us sitting at our desk trying to design stuff and think about what the community might want. So bouncing ideas off you are going to be super important through this process. We may go silent on you for the next month or two, just as we're pulling data together. But when we start getting into those concepts, those ideas, and those think tanks, and Michael had said maybe that's the time we get public involved. We want the community. We want this study team, this planning team involved as well as we start preparing this. So we don't want to go down in this direction when we're supposed to go in this direction, I guess is my message. All right, I'm going to kind of wrap up. It's been a very long meeting. Item 8 is information we need from the study team. That's our climate team. I guess I'll just mention it to folks here. We can follow up in the email with Jared. We look at the traffic counts at those key intersections from DOT, as well as we get access to the DOT rehab project, the WIN number, PDFs of the plans, as well as CAD files and the right-of-way plans. One thing we don't have, and maybe Joel has it for us, with GIS data, we've been struggling to try to get the right-of-way lines, property lines and right-of-way lines for this community, so in a file that we can use. So, and speaking of that, we'll reach out to Joel. If you can get us any GIS files for this community, that'd be great. Property lines, natural resources, utilities, any that stuff. Going to Kathy and Donnie Shue, and actually Oliver Associates is on the call. If we've got any utility as-built information along this corridor for sewer or water or other utilities, we'll take what we can get. We're trying to build a good base mapping of what we know for features out there. And then the schedule I have in that agenda is the last item. It's basically a 12-month schedule. We slid everything about 3 months. We were a little late getting going with this project. So our contractor notice to proceed was just this month. So you kind of see an outline. We're going to vary from that. All these have their way of finding their own course and their own schedule, but this is what we'd like to try to establish. And basically it gives us a couple months to do that fact-finding. We'll coordinate with the town on some site visits, safety audits, as well as utility assessments, things like that. And then we'll start plugging and chugging on some of these ideas and working in concert with the town. With the goal of through the summer months coming up with some ideas. Hopefully by the fall we'll have kind of the direction we think this project might be going in with recommendations. We would have the public and council meetings earlier or later in the season. Draft reports probably beginning of next year. Draft and final report. So any questions? I'm through my agenda. Does anybody have any questions?
Anyone here? Don, I think we're all set here.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and I apologize for being long-winded, but it's an exciting project. Hopefully you guys are excited as well.
No, you did very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Appreciate it. Looking forward to moving along.
All right. Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you.
Good night.
Mike, if I might, I sit here and I was reminded,
Annalise, nice to see you again.
50 years ago, this town was upside down. And the old town hall sat here. Across the street were the dilapidated buildings where Stein Park is. Across where our office is were multiple dilapidated buildings. The Lancey House had burned down. And this very same initiative began 50 years ago. And in a period of 3 years, the town hall went bye-bye. We secured the money to build this building. The fire station was the only piece of the town hall that remained, and that was upgraded. And a lot of good things happened in a very, very short period of time. I believe it was 3 years. All of that was done, and here we are again. But I think this is yet another significant opportunity to improve this town. And I want to compliment you for taking this on. This is not going to be a little issue. This is a big deal, but it can change the entire face of this community for the good, and enhance the community, but also make it more attractive for more people to come here and improve things.
So it's like a 50-year cycle.
Well, I hate to say
Because like you said, I mean,
Where did 50 years ago? So where did 50 years ago?
That was 50 years. I am not exaggerating. I was sitting where you were. Not in this damn building. That's the damn sure. Okay. Not in this building. Its predecessor, let's say.
Oh yeah, I barely remember that. Had the jail downstairs.
Yeah. And so it's very possible. It's very feasible, and I want to compliment you for that. But also, it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of work. And I would also suggest that there's federal money beyond the state money that's available to this if we think out of the box. We can change this community in a big way.
So Don and Jared, I see you still on there. You're listening to this story here, so I want to emphasize what Peter had mentioned on the end there. You know, extra money that may be available, thinking outside the box. So I know you gentlemen have a lot more context than the layman that we have. At least myself. But there may be some interesting things that we haven't even considered here now. So I think we've got the horsepower to do it. And as Peter mentioned, it's going to be a significant project. And when we get to the end of this, it's going to be remember when we started this and look at it now kind of thing. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a fantastic project.
Good.
And we've talked about it for 7 years now. Yeah.
I really recommend that bold vision, that really looking to what could be and not thinking about the limitations of what has been in the past and the present. Because what's going to differentiate, Pittsfield when we do go for a USDOT, raised grant is how is Pittsfield standing out amongst all the other municipalities in the United States? And I really want this town to have that vision and that imagination Pittsfield and the community. So really, I know I talk about it a lot, and I'm not trying to be a merchant of hope because I'm not here to sell that. I'm just here to say, realistically, have that dream big, and that's what's going to actually help you in the long run when I do take that final package that Don delivers to the municipality to the people at DOT who then apply for the federal funding. And that's where, think about the look, feel, character, the way of life that you want Pittsfield to be, because that's what's going to help really sell this to the U.S. Department of Transportation, and then get something shiny for, the senators to bring and say, hey, look, this is what we are doing in rural Maine, and this is a great program. So really don't limit yourselves at all, and have that, not to be corny, but reach for the stars kind of stuff.
Oh, perfect. All right, we're all set. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
What's the railroad? Well, the Panhandle's been bought out by CSX. So they're upgrading line now, starting at Longsack, all going to be well drilled all the way down through Old Town, this train. They're going to bring this traffic back up within 1 or 2 years to 30, 35. And the plan is within 4 or 5 years to be back up to 50 to 60 mile an hour rail traffic, like it used to be.
Well, that's all fine and good. Right. That's all fine and good, what you're saying.